Also with me is Mr. Yogesh Kumar, videographer. Welcome to MTB, Maha MTB channel. Today we are having an interesting subject to discuss with you viewers, and that is the debt trap which China has put across smaller countries of the world. China has got a different ways of handling international relations with different countries. Smaller countries they handle in a different way. Large countries like USA in a different way, countries like India in a different way, and that's but natural. What they do with the smaller and medium sized countries, countries like Pakistan, countries like Sri Lanka, or even countries like Kazakhstan, Laos, Indonesia, and most importantly Taiwan, they are, and many countries in Africa too, what they do is they give those countries lots and lots of debt. They give the debt for supposedly for improving the economic condition, improving the social conditions in that country, for building roads, for getting the people education, on paper at least, that's what they say. What has happened, all these small countries because of their size have remained poor. Even though they had some natural resources, those resources were being exploited by Western countries, and because they were poor, the standard of living in those countries had been always in the developing country status or poor country status. Naturally, the rulers in those countries wanted to improve the standard of living. So, China approached them. Earlier, USA and other Western countries had approached them, and they gave them loans at favorable rates. Sometimes the loans were given by America and Western countries. Sometimes it was given by International Monetary Fund or World Bank or UNDP, United Nations Development Program, under all these auspices. This loan was given. These loans were soft loans, sometimes they were grants, sometimes they were loans at a preferred and favorable rate of interest, and so on and so forth. China has a different vision. China said to these countries that you supply your raw material to China, but to supply that, the raw material is normally not available on the port side, it is available somewhere where the mines are there. So, you have to build good roads from the mines to the ports, in general I am saying. So, to build roads you do not have money, so we will loan you money and we will build a road for you. There is a catch here, we will loan you money, which means the capital will be provided by us, we will build means it will be done by Chinese company. At what rate they are doing the road, who is building the road, who is getting employment, is it the Chinese or is it the local people getting employment, it is all under China's control. And on the top of that, they said this is a loan, this is not a grant, and the rate of interest of this loan was pretty high. It was much higher than the IMF or World Bank or American aid or all these kind of things. In these kind of very strict terms, the loan contracts were drawn. Many times the loan contracts were not even with the countries or the states or the governments. It was with the banks in the state, and the banks would in turn loan to the actual company which is going to do the road building and things like that. Because of this, in the balance sheet of that country, the country's balance sheet, these loans did not show. A company in America, an NGO in America has done research on all these things, and they have come out with some figures which are eye openers. They say that 42% of the loan getting countries of the borrowers from China have got loans to the tune of more than 10% of their GDP. This is very heavy for somebody who is earning 3 lakh rupees a year, for example, and you want to build a house, and you take a loan which is actually more than 10%, so more than 30,000 for example, and it is going to be paid at an enormous rate of interest. The EMI is going to be paid, which is simply not possible, because these countries were trying to improve the situation of their citizens, but at the same time their own income was not very high. Now, in this situation, how will they service the loan? Secondly, the citizens of that country, at least the economists in those countries, will come to know that the China's loans are at a very high rate of interest. So, how to prevent all that from bubbling up? So, there were two vehicles used. One is China said, do not open the terms of the loan sheet. The loan sheet terms were kept secret. So, not many people even knew about it. And secondly, the rulers in all these countries were actually dictators, like Pakistan, Myanmar, all these places. Now, these dictators can be corrupted pretty easily. Venezuela is a case in point, Pakistan is a case in point. So, the countries, total these 42% countries, I said there are 165 total countries to which China has given these horrendous loans. Pakistan is the largest recipient of these loans with $27 billion. It's a huge sum, it's very big sum. And why Pakistan got the loan? Why all these countries got the loan? They got it under a very good name called BRI. Xi Jinping came out with an acronym BRI for Belt and Road Initiative. He said this is the communications initiative that Chinese ships can come to your port, they can load up the raw material which you are going to provide. For example, in Zambia it is copper ore, in many countries different raw material, Australia it is coal and things like that, Indonesia it is coal. We will pick that up, we will pay for that, and this is the way you will make money. The dictators were given enough money to keep quiet about this whole scene. So it's pure corruption, nothing else. Like in Sri Lanka, they built the Hambantota port for Sri Lanka. They gave them loan, they gave strict terms for interest, and now Sri Lanka is clearly in a state where it cannot repay this loan. It cannot service the loan, let alone the interest, let alone the main principal, they cannot even pay the interest. Because all China said to them that with this development things will happen, you will make money, nothing of that sort is happening. But then the loan agreement had a clause in the end, in case you are not able to service this loan, then China can take these assets for itself. So which means China said, no, Hambantota port is not going to be yours, it is going to be ours. You will need, a Sri Lankan will need a visa to enter the Hambantota port and the Colombo port, wherever China was developing. So which means it's a way China puts those countries in trap, and then the rulers have taken the money and ran away, and the people of those countries suffer terribly. Pakistan is a case in point. $27 billion Pakistan has eaten up for CPEC. You know, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which goes up to the Gwadar port. Gwadar port is built by China for Pakistan, and complete line, railway line and 4-lane highway and all is put from Gwadar up to Kashgar in Xinjiang province. And what they are saying that this is the initiative which will help Pakistan. All those highways, nobody is traveling. Pakistan doesn't have anybody to travel on those highways. They are under severe economic crunch. So they are not able to service the loan. So China will say that Gwadar is now ours, you don't need to come here, you will need a passport for that. This is the way they have done with all such small countries, and they are pulling those countries into a debt trap, that from that trap it's very difficult to escape. Sri Lanka has actually begged India to help them out. So India has decided to step out and give them a second port, because Sri Lanka's own port is not usable. So give them a second port, using that that country can totter back to its feet, because currently the country is not even able to service the loan or the interest or things like that. So this is the way China is going about with the small countries. With Taiwan, they have got a different design now. What they are doing, they are scaring Taiwan by sending fighter pilots, fighter jets into Taiwanese airspace without permission, showing that we can do what we want. Recently, they sent as much as 38 such fighter sorties into Taiwan to scare them up. Now, why Taiwan? A, because China considers Taiwan as its own province. B, because Taiwan manufactures 70% of integrated circuit chips used in artificial intelligence, communication, you name the equipment, laptops, desktops and all, you name the equipment, chips are used there. So these chips are being manufactured in Taiwan. If China gets a stranglehold on Taiwan, China can then play up the world for the chips. China can say you will get the chips only if you accede to A, B, C demand. So they can blackmail the world by having a control over Taiwan. That's the reason they are doing all these tactics. But Taiwan has declared that if China wants a war, China will have a war. Fortunately for Taiwan and for the rest of the free world, America has simply said that it won't be tolerated. America will step in if something like this happens. Even Japan has said, the Prime Minister of Japan said that if there is an attack on Taiwan, we will consider it as an attack on Japan. So with this rate, Taiwan may be able to be saved, because all other countries fear that if 70% of chip manufacture goes under the hands of China, they will blackmail the rest of the world for giving those chips. So this is what is happening. But while this is happening, what is happening inside China? I have done recently a video on the Evergrande debacle and fiasco inside China, a company which is a housing company under the loan of $300 billion which they are not able to service. Because they are not able to service this loan, China, the whole Chinese economy is into trouble. Second is China, more than half of China is under darkness because their electricity production has come to a standstill because most of China's electricity is produced by coal. The coal was being supplied by Australia. Recently there was a tiff between China and Australia when the Australian Prime Minister said that Wuhan virus has originated in China. China has stopped importing coal. Plus, Xi Jinping has gone ahead and promised the world that they are going to reduce emissions. So, less and less coal-fired power stations would come up. With all this, there is no coal in China, there is no electricity, and it's the most severe winter which is coming up. Things are going to be very difficult for Chinese people, particularly in the northern region. You can see a lot of unrest happening. Let us see what happens in this case, whether China is going to fall into its own trap of not having enough power, enough energy and things like that. Let us see where it goes. If you like this video, please share it with your friends and relations. Please subscribe to our channel, and if you are not pressed till now, please press the bell icon so that all our latest videos are intimated to you immediately. Thank you for watching.